Hey folks, Steve here. It's the show where I answer your questions, and this week's first question comes from Jacob Hansen, who asks, why do you always wear a cap like a 19-year-old gangster rapper? If I wear it like anybody other than myself, it's probably some washed up former minor league ball player who thought that when he made the Suns roster in like 2002, that it was going to be his big break, his shot to break into the big show, and then he twisted his knee in like his second game and had to retire, and now he sells used cars in some godforsaken lot in like Harper's Ferry or Charlestown. If I'm gonna wear it like anybody, it's probably like that guy, not like some 19-year-old gangster rapper who doesn't exist because they don't wear Suns hats. Anyway, I apologize for being a little rude to you about that question, Jacob. Normally I wouldn't apologize, but this is the 50th anniversary week of Star Trek, so I'm in kind of a good mood. You caught me at the right time. It was the right time to ask a smart-ass question about my cap. So instead of going any further with this, I will just say to you, Jacob, in all sincerity, live long and prosper. Yeah. See that? Hailing frequencies are open. Next question is from Annie Trinity, who says, I believe people alleging rape shouldn't be dismissed just because the person they're accusing is highly respected. I also really don't want Donald Trump to win, so I'm obliged to vote for the Democratic candidate. But when you take into consideration the accusations made by Juanita Broaddrick, is there any way these two motivations are compatible? If I vote for Hillary, it seems like there's a real possibility I'll be complicitly taking part in a culture that lets rapists, or in this case, accomplices, get away with their crimes because the alternative would be too inconvenient. I'm really conflicted on this issue, and since I know you have similar political leanings on both contradictory positions, I wanted to know how you are handling this. It's a really, really tough issue, and it is something that I've thought about. I mean, of the many, many purported skeletons in Hillary's closet, I think her role in the Juanita Broaddrick affair is one of the most troubling. But the good news is, if you're worried about whether or not you are going to be complicit in rape culture if you vote for Hillary Clinton, I mean, I suppose the answer unavoidably is yes, but her opponent is someone who is not accused of helping to cover up a rape or trying to silence a rape survivor. Her opponent is someone who has actually been accused of rape himself. So you can either vote for Hillary Clinton, who is accused of helping to silence rape accusations against her husband back in the day, or you can vote for Donald Trump, who is accused of actually raping people at some point in his life. So to me, you know, if you're judging it on the rape culture issue, Hillary would certainly be the lesser of two evils in that respect. As problematic as she is, and as troubling as some of her conduct, her alleged conduct, has been regarding Juanita Broaddrick, I think Clinton is clearly the preferable candidate on this issue, given the fact that her opponent is Donald Trump. Patrick Dodds, Steve, a Star Trek related question in honor of this week being its 50th anniversary. What are your single favorite episode of each of the 5 live action... Patrick Dodds, Steve, a Star Trek related question in honor of this week being its 50th anniversary. What is your single favorite episode of each of the 5 live action televised Star Trek series? And if it's not pushing it, a brief reason why. Yes, of course, any reason to talk about Star Trek, especially this week. Okay, my favorite episode of the original series, that's a tough one because I love so many of those episodes, but my personal favorite is probably Amok Time. I love the fight between Kirk and Spock. I love the really, really uncomfortable conversation that Kirk and Spock have when Kirk is trying to get Spock to explain what's wrong with him, you know? And Spock's like, it has to do with biology, and Kirk's like, what do you mean biology? And Spock's like, Vulcan biology. Like, can we please stop talking about this? My favorite episode of Next Generation, I often say my favorite episode is the Chain of Command 2-parter, which is the one that guest stars Ronnie Cox as Captain Jellicoe that I made a whole separate video about a few months ago. I love that episode. I also love Tapestry, the episode where Q sends Captain Picard back into his own past, quantum leap style, to change events in his past to make sure that he doesn't get stabbed through the heart by a Nausicaan and have to have an artificial heart. Deep Space Nine, that's easy. My favorite Deep Space Nine episode is The Visitor, the one that guest stars Tony Todd as Jake Sisko as an older man, where Captain Sisko is feared lost in an engineering accident, and then Jake gradually realizes that he's not lost, he's actually trapped in subspace. Such a beautiful episode, and a very different episode, a very sort of off-book, off-model episode for a Star Trek show. Favorite Voyager episode? Not a big fan of Voyager, but they did have a few good episodes every now and then. My favorite is probably the first Q episode on Voyager called Death Wish. Voyager wound up actually completely ruining Q, in my estimation. He got worse and worse with every appearance on Voyager, but his first appearance in the episode Death Wish is pretty good. And Enterprise, my favorite Enterprise episode, again, not a big fan of that show in general, but I really like the first season episode Breaking the Ice, which I believe I also mentioned a few weeks ago when we were talking about Star Trek stuff, which is where the crew discovers a comet while they're traveling through space, and they stop to investigate the comet. And there's also a really nice scene that I've always liked of the bridge crew answering questions to be sent back to elementary school kids back on Earth, which I love because it's the sort of thing that like astronauts do. Like they do that, astronauts on the International Space Station do that, and it's cool to see the Star Trek characters do that. It sort of, reminds you that they're supposed to be astronauts. And that was a feeling that I think Enterprise could have evoked a lot more often than it did. I think that show would have been a lot better off if it had steered more toward the astronaut angle than just trying to make it into just yet another Star Trek show with just slightly lower levels of tech and different aliens. So yeah, those are my favorite episodes of all of the live-action Star Trek series. Kievar, have you seen Stranger Things on Netflix? What did you think? I really enjoyed it, but as someone who has read a lot of Stephen King and enjoyed a lot of Band of Misfits, Friends, Land, and Adventure films, The Goonies, Stand By Me, etc., I guess the series was precisely targeted at me demographically. Also, as a longtime fan of D&D, since '83 actually, I really appreciated how the Friends' familiarity with strange concepts from the game became useful for discussing and understanding what was going on. You tend not to be into the D&D style of fantasy, and your late seating of The Goonies wasn't so positive, plus you're about 5 years younger, so I wonder if Stranger Things worked for you or not. Oh, it definitely worked for me. I loved Stranger Things. My wife and I watched it. We watched the entire series over a weekend about maybe a month ago. We just binged straight through it on Saturday and Sunday, and I just thought it was fantastic. And I did really appreciate the way it evoked those both like 80s horror movies and also those 80s, like as you describe them, the Band of Misfits get into an adventure movies like The Goonies, which I'm not a huge fan of, but I just have a certain nostalgia for that kind of movie. I remember movies that I liked when I was a kid of that similar genre, of that same genre, like The Monster Squad or The Explorers, that were about a group of young friends who sort of got caught up in an adventure. And Stranger Things definitely has that vibe. And plus, I mean, the acting is fantastic. The mood, the direction, the writing, is just a really fantastic series, and I'm very anxious to see a season 2 of it. I'm fairly certain there's going to be a second season. I think actually, I don't know if they've officially announced it yet, but they announced like what the episode titles would be for season 2 a couple weeks ago, so I'm really looking forward to it. And yes, even though I'm not a D&D fan and I've never played it, and that's not really in my frame of reference, I appreciated that. I thought it was a nice way to sort of take the fantasy world of those kids, and then they can actually draw on that to inform what is happening to them in real life. I thought the whole thing was fantastic. So huge fan of Stranger Things. Conference report questions. What do you think about the recent changes to YouTube's TOS regarding monetization, specifically that content which is not advertiser friendly can be excluded from that reward system? Secondly, do you think it is fair that the amount earned from making a video is determined entirely by the size of its audience? Lastly, what do you think is a fair amount to be paid for making a video, taking into account only the labor involved? I don't have a problem at all with YouTube deciding for itself what kind of videos are monetizable and what kind of videos aren't. I think it's completely within YouTube's rights as a company to decide for itself and to enforce those decisions as it sees fit. I think we need to remind ourselves, those of us who might want to complain about this, that YouTube hosts our videos. Those of us who are content creators, YouTube hosts our videos for free. We don't have to pay YouTube anything to host our videos. And if we get really lucky and one of our videos goes viral or our channel takes off and becomes super popular and we get tens or hundreds or millions, tens or hundreds of thousands or millions of subscribers, we still don't have to pay YouTube for the right to host our videos or for all the bandwidth that it takes to host our videos and to stream our videos to all these people. We don't have to pay a cent. We actually get to make money on it. YouTube will pay us, or actually will give us a portion of the money it makes from advertising on our videos. That's a pretty good deal. And what would be a fair amount to be paid for making a video? I am one of the fortunate ones that is able to make a living off of my videos. When you combine the earnings from ad revenue here on YouTube and also my Patreon donations, I'm able to make a living and pay my bills and have a roof over my head and food on the table for myself and my wife and my cat. So that's fantastic. But you know, if I were paid a $15 an hour minimum wage for my video production, I would be making way more than I'm making now. So I would say at least a $15 an hour living wage, minimum wage, for the labor put into these videos of mine. That would be a raise for me, and that would be entirely fair. So let's start there. Let's make that the bottom if we're going to talk about what's fair to be paid for making videos. We'll treat it like any other form of labor and say $15 an hour minimum wage, and then we'll sort of go from there. How about that? I would sign up for that. Rock and Rob 210. Hey Steve, I have a more personal question to ask. I have panic attacks. They don't happen all the time. I only have them when I'm alone. It's very unpleasant to say the least. I get this overwhelming fear of death, and I start to feel a rush of panic. The only way I've been able to control these panic attacks is to be around other people. I'll try to hang out with friends and surround myself with people, especially people who care about me and understand this problem that I have. Unfortunately, I can't do that all the time. Sooner or later, I have to be alone again. I've tried meditation, medication, and even smoking marijuana. I know that is self-medicating, but I'm willing to try anything at this point. So far, nothing has stopped these panic attacks. What would you suggest I do? Any ideas? Thanks for your time. Love your channel. I especially look forward to more of your Steve and Stuffy videos. Thanks. Well, thank you, Rob. I appreciate that. And I'm sorry to hear about your panic attacks. I can actually relate to this really strongly, because what you describe, how you describe your panic attacks, is something that I have experienced myself throughout my life. Ever since I was a little kid, a fear of death and this sort of rush of panic, this sort of feeling in your chest, you know, it's like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. I've experienced that a lot. And what I do is I just try to take my mind off of it. I mean, to me, it's very much rooted, the physiological response, I think, is very much attached to the fear of death. And the only way to deal with the fear of death, to me, is to think about something else. Because what are you gonna do? You can't prevent death. So I just try to think about other things, try to think about something else. And eventually it passes. And I mean, that's all I can tell you. Maybe what you experience, it sounds like what you experience is much more severe than my version of it. I've never felt like I needed to seek like a medical remedy for it. But I think I know a little bit how you feel, and I know what you're experiencing, although it sounds like yours is maybe a lot worse than mine, and I'm really sorry about that, because the ones I have are bad enough, you know. But yeah, I wish I could tell you more. I wish I could give you a better idea of how to handle it, but to me it's just keeping still and thinking about something else and trying to remain calm and peaceful and just let it pass, and eventually it does. I wish I could be more help to you, and I wish you didn't have to go through that. Marv Roberts, Steve, how is it that you can defend the religion of Islam while Arabic ex-Muslims blatantly refuse to defend it against penalty of death even in their own home countries? I don't defend Islam. I'm an atheist. I don't think that Islam is true. I think Islam is just as false as every other religion. And I don't object to when people say that Islam is a false religion. What I object to is when people try to argue that Islam as written or as conceived or somehow in some innate, inherent way is worse than other religions, when it's not. Islam is only as good or as bad as the way it is practiced by people. And there are some Muslims who practice a very violent, very oppressive version of Islam that is incredibly harmful, that marginalizes people, that punishes people, that discourages apostasy, and is, treats women and gay folks and trans folks and non-Muslims or people who aren't the right kind of Muslims just absolutely brutally. And I have no wish to defend that at all, and I have no wish to apologize for that. I think that's absolutely awful. But that doesn't mean that Islam is inherently a worse religion than any other religion, because it is quite possible to imagine, and in fact it is quite easy to find examples in history and even in our current world of Christians who behave the exact same way. And I don't think that it's fair to tar Christians as a whole with the crimes of the worst, most brutal, most violent, most barbaric Christians in the world or that have ever existed. And I don't think it's fair to do the same to Muslims. What I object to is when people talk about Islam as a monolithic thing, being this or being that, and in doing so serve to further marginalize Muslims in the West, and also more liberal, moderate, progressive Muslims in Muslim countries who are already being oppressed and suffering even more. If you really want to help Muslims and ex-Muslims who are suffering under oppressive regimes in places like Saudi Arabia and Iran and Syria and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, vote for representatives and senators and presidents and vice presidents who will try to use American diplomacy to pressure those regimes to clean up their act, to pressure those regimes to clean up their human rights records, and to stop executing gay people and trans people, and to stop executing women, and to stop treating women like second-class citizens under the law, and to stop treating apostates like second-class citizens. Maybe you could play some small part in making life better for those people over there if that's really what you care about. Take part in the democratic process and vote for those people. But by attacking Islam, you're making yourself feel better, and you're taking part in a circle jerk where you can try to tell yourself that you're fighting the good fight for reason and logic and rationality, and you're not doing shit to help those people. All you're doing is contributing to the marginalization of Muslims and perceived Muslims and ex-Muslims in this country. Carrie Hansen, hi Steve, I watched one of your You Had to Ask videos last night before I went to bed, which is why you were in my dream. When I was a kid in the 90s, my daycare used to put on wrestling every day, and all us kids would sit in front of it and watch. So in the dream, we were talking in the living room, and I realized I recognized you from watching you fling chairs at people's heads and do all the wrestling things that wrestlers did in the 90s. So I asked you what your wrestling name was, and you were like, guess. Kind of an asshole response, but okay. So I thought about it, and a name came to me, and that name was The Answer. So what my rambling story boils down to are these two stupid questions. Is your wrestling name The Answer? And if not, what is it? My wrestling name is not The Answer. When my friends and I would play wrestling in the 90s when we were teenagers, I actually had two wrestling names. My original wrestling name, inspired by a line said to camera by Big Daddy Cool Diesel at WrestleMania 12, was The Shit. As in, look at me, I'm the shit, like I'm the greatest. So I was, my first wrestling name was The Shit. Then I took an inspiration from the great Lou Thez and called myself Hooker, because Hooker is the title of Lou Thez's autobiography, and it also used to be the term, nowadays the more popular term would be like shooter. Someone who was like a serious, dangerous wrestler, who was someone who could actually hurt you in the wrestling ring, who had real talent and was a real fighter and a real skilled grappler. Those folks were called a hooker, and Lou Thez was the greatest of the hookers. So I called myself Hooker. So those are my wrestling names, not The Answer, either The Shit or Hooker. Captain Michael, rank every Superman live-action film from best to worst. Any which feature Superman, you can go back as far as you want. That is not a question, Captain Michael. That is a demand. And it is a demand I am more than happy to answer, because dig the shirt. So, okay, best Superman movie, obviously, is going to be Superman Returns. Best superhero movie, period, if you ask me. So Superman Returns is the best. After that, I always have loved Superman 2. After that, and you can see, we'll merge Superman 2 and the Donner cut together, because I think they're both great. And I'm perfectly happy with the theatrical cut of Superman 2, but I really like the Donner cut as well. So we'll just merge them, mush them all together and say Superman 2, whatever version you like, is the second best Superman movie. Third best Superman movie, Superman the movie, the first Christopher Reeve movie. After that, I would plug in Superman and the Mole Men, the George Reeves feature that was created as sort of a precursor to the 1950s TV series. That is an awesome Superman movie. Anyone watching this, if you have never seen Superman and the Mole Men, watch that fucking movie. It is a great Superman movie. After that, I would say Superman 3. Then maybe we'll throw in Man of Steel if I'm feeling extra charitable, just for production value alone. And then after that, Superman 4. We'll throw Superman 4 in there. And then after that, Batman v Superman, because that is utter garbage. And look, it's even on my middle finger. Check it out. That's where Batman v Superman goes. So there you go. That's my rank. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And I guess that means that it's time for
the lightning round.
Because this week we do it Star Trek style, Superman question notwithstanding. Azed, hey Steve, if Trump gets elected, I just threw up in my mouth a little, are any of your stuffed friends in danger of deportation? I'm pretty sure that Hans Krieger is here legally, but Jack, I don't know, some of his paperwork is a little funky. He might have to worry a little bit, especially since he is a very staunch political opponent of Donald Trump. Lucas Hackett, what angry brony. Yo, Steve, knowing that the Survivor Series doesn't happen until November, I figured I'd ask this now. What would be your ultimate Survivor Series 5-man dream team? I'm going to go with an all-top guy dream team. Okay? All-time WWE top guys. So we'll go with Bruno Sammartino, Hulk Hogan, Steve Austin, let's throw The Rock in there, and John Cena. That's my ultimate top 5 main event babyface Survivor Series team. Beat that. Good luck getting any of those guys to do a job. It's going to be like they're all 5 are going to survive the match. Captain Andy, I am constantly told by right-wing dipshits on YouTube that your channel is dead. Yet here you are. Who does this make you feel more like, Snake Plissken or Mark Twain? I guess Snake Plissken would be the cooler choice, wouldn't it? I'll go with Snake. But you know, whenever anybody says that, or when they say like so-and-so just destroyed your channel, or just destroyed you in a video, what it always brings to mind is Sherlock Holmes. He has a wonderful quote in The Problem of Thor Bridge, I think it is, where someone says to Holmes, like, I'm going to get you, I'm going to destroy you for this. And Holmes says, so many have said so, and yet here I am. So maybe I'm more like Sherlock Holmes, except not that smart or cool. Malevolent Divinity, if by some sort of space magic Captain Malcolm Reynolds found himself in Federation space, did some sort of crime, and got Captain Jean-Luc Picard assigned to detain him, who do you think would win? Would Mal manage to escape, continue his life of dastardly daring-do, and make a right mockery of the Federation, or would Picard end his ideological menagerie's mischief? And, if it were the latter, how long would it take? I find it interesting that you pitted Reynolds versus Picard instead of Kirk. It seems like that's a much more natural matchup. But I guess it depends on who's writing it. If it's an appearance on Star Trek: The Next Generation, then I guess Mal would either be captured or they would contrive some way to send him back to his own universe, so you don't have him running around, for the rest of the show. I think it would probably have to go something like that. I think Picard would capture him because Picard's pretty smart and Picard has the Enterprise at his disposal, so I don't think Reynolds could run for that long. Could escape forever. I think Picard would capture him eventually, but because Picard is such a humane, humanistic type fellow, he would eventually come to sympathize with Reynolds' plight, and he would put Geordi and Data to work on finding a way to send him back to his own universe. I think that's probably how it would go. Got that funk. Hey Steve, who would win in a fight, Gandhi or the Buddha? Buddha would win. Have you seen Buddha's bonsai drop, Yokozuna style? It's fantastic. I mean, I'm pretty sure that Rikishi stole a couple of his moves from Buddha as well. Buddha could move in the ring. For a guy his size, you wouldn't think so, but he's, the classic heavyweight who moves like a cruiserweight, you know what I'm saying? Buddha would have flattened Gandhi. It wouldn't have even been close. At least that's how I would have booked it. You got to put Buddha over Gandhi to establish Buddha as a killer and as a threat, so then you build to the big match that everybody wants to see, which is Buddha versus Jesus. Right, you get the two deity figureheads to smash each other. You got to build Buddha up by putting him over Gandhi first. So Gandhi's going to do the job. Gandhi's going to be the enhancement talent to make Buddha look good, and then you build up to the big match between Jesus and Buddha. And then Jesus wins that one, of course, because he no-sells Buddha's finish, because Jesus. Will Vexes, hey there, Steve. My question is fighting YouTube anti-feminists, MRAs, etc. just flogging a dead horse? In my own opinion, I would rather see high-quality atheist, feminist, skeptical content that espouses the value of these views rather than focuses on fighting the other shirts. Yeah, I agree. I don't think we are ever going to take back the microphone from the toxic asshole atheists by simply attacking them. I think it's vital to create fresh, original, positive content from our own point of view. I think that's absolutely vital. As much as I love guys like H Bomber Guy and Kevin Logan, and I so admire what they do by satirizing and responding to the jerks and the assholes, we can't just be that. I think that kind of thing is important, and there's definitely a place for that. And I enjoy a lot of that, but it can't just be that. It can't just be us doing response videos to their response videos to us. We have to be doing our own original creative thing, because that's something that they're really bad at. They don't do original content so well. They do attack and swarm and belittle and mock and respond. They don't do original stuff too well. So that's what we have to do. I think it's very important. Rotting in the Midwest, who would win in a fight? Diane Rehm from The Diane Rehm Show or Tom Ashbrook from On Point with Tom Ashbrook? Diane is really old, but I think she might be an immortal. Tom Ashbrook was born on a farm. This could be a great undercard match for the big Buddha versus Jesus fight. I'm going to go with Diane Rehm because I'm pretty sure Diane Rehm is unkillable. I think she is definitely the public radio version of Keith Richards, although I don't think she has nearly as much drug use under her belt. But yeah, I would say Diane Rehm would have to go over there. As much as I like Tom Ashbrook, and I do enjoy listening to On Point from time to time. But yeah, Diane Rehm. Oh, the phone's ringing. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. And Piker Eyes. Steve, you and I are both huge Stallone fans, so I had to ask, if your life had to instantly be turned into the life of a role Stallone played, but after the movie is over, what role would you pick? I think many would choose Demolition Man. I mean, you get a weird new culture to experience after being on ice for a few decades, and Sandra Bullock is hot for you. Personally, I like the idea of Copland being the rest of my life. Oh, Tango and Cash, man. Tango and Cash is the Stallone movie I would want to live in. I mean, you're like a superstar, like basically rock star cop. Kurt Russell is your best friend. Come on. Tango and Cash, all the way. Hey, that's it for the questions. That's it for the lightning round. It's now time for the shout out of the week. These guys don't really need my help, but I'm going to give them the shout out anyway, out of respect and out of just deference to the great work that they're doing. The shout out this week in honor of the 50th anniversary of Star Trek goes to the best Star Trek fan series ever, Star Trek Continues. Seriously, folks, if you have not watched Star Trek Continues, if you have avoided it because you don't really dig fan series, which I completely get, you think it's going to be cheesy and sort of just wish fulfillment, Mary Sue type stuff, please try to get past that at least long enough to watch one of these episodes. If you want to watch one of the episodes, I would recommend one of the most two recent episodes, either the recent, the one that just premiered last week, Embracing the Winds, or the one right before that, Come Not Between the Dragons. Those are both excellent episodes. Those are the two best episodes the show has done so far. If you are a Star Trek fan, and you want to celebrate the 50th anniversary, and you've watched all of the classic episodes, and you're looking for something new, something to celebrate the 50th anniversary, and you've never watched Star Trek Continues. Star Trek Continues. Check it out. I don't think you'll be sorry. I cannot recommend it highly enough as a Star Trek fan. So there you go. There's your shout out for this week. Star Trek Continues. I also want to shout out, as always, the Lemme Listen podcasts, which are the creation of the great Jason with a D, Jason Harding, also a Star Trek fan, by the way. You can listen to all of the awesome Let Me Listen podcasts, including Late Seating, which is the show that me and Jason do together. Our most recent episode is Shaft. You can hear that. You can also get ready for our next episode, which we're recording this week and will be up next week, which is going to be about the Wizard of Oz. You can also listen to Let Me Finish, the original Let Me Listen podcast, which is co-hosted by Jason and Finite Atticus. You can listen to Cinema Shack. You can listen to Cinetific. These are all awesome shows. You can listen to all of them at LetMeListenPodcasts.com. Go check out those shows. Listen to them after you've watched an episode of Star Trek Continues, because you should seriously do that. I'm not fucking around. That's it for me, everybody. I'm out of here for another week. Please leave a comment on this video asking me your question for next time. You can ask me anything about anything. Nothing is too serious. Nothing is too silly. And I will answer as many of your questions as I possibly can in the next video. I already did the live long and prosper bit at the beginning, so I suppose I just will say hailing frequencies closed. Take care, everybody. Hey folks, hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. And also please consider helping me to make more videos like this one by supporting this channel through Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a patron. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.